Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I've put together a collection of 5 Christmas gingerbread style DIYs to inspire you this festive season. Today we're going to be making a gingerbread wreath and a pick. We're going to be using the IOD Blitz mould and the amazing casting resin. You can find a full product list in the description of this video and all your IOD and Dixie Belle needs on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Let's get started. Firstly, I'm going to be mixing up my amazing casting resin, mixing part A and part B and carefully pouring them into my snowflake molds. I will then have to wait about 15 minutes and then I can take my castings out and I'm just carefully cleaning up and peeling off any of the excess resin. Next, I'm using Dixie Belle's Pumpkin Spice limited edition fall colour. It's a chalk paint, so adhesion is not an issue, and this colour is a perfect choice for gingerbread. I'm then using a small artist brush with the colour Fluff by Dixie Belle, and I'm very carefully hitting the higher points and picking out certain details in each of the snowflakes. I found that if I held my brush at a almost flat angle, that it only hit the parts that I wanted. So as you can see, I have cast a bunch of the snowflakes. We're going to be using these in a lot of projects in this video and videos in the future, so I wanted to make sure I had a lot. I've made several of each of the snowflakes except for the larger snowflake design. Today I am using a ready-made plywood wreath that I bought at a local store. Now, if you do not have this on hand, you could perhaps recreate this by making your own wreath out of a couple of layers of cardboard. So here you can see that I'm just playing around and working out how I want my arrangement to sit. So I'm going to have some that are in direct contact with the plywood wreath base and others that are going to be layered on top. So I'm just trying to work out a balance here to see how I want them to look. Once I've worked out how I want my snowflakes to be arranged, I'm going to be using a combination of a strong wood glue and a super glue. So I'm using the wood glue on the snowflakes that are making direct contact with the plywood, and I am using the super glue on anything that is going to be overlapping and layered. I just want that to stick pretty quickly so that the ones that are overlapping and are layered don't fall off while the others are drying. The super glue that I'm using is called Gorilla Super Gel Glue. In hindsight, I've decided that I probably should have painted the plywood wreath base with pumpkin spice first, but here I'm just going in, and anywhere you can see the hint of the plywood, I'm just dabbing on a little bit of extra paint. Next, I'm attaching a little screw-in hook, and that is going to be used to hang the ribbon from that I'm going to be attaching. I thought that this black and white buffalo check ribbon went perfectly, so I'm folding it in half so that it will fit through the smaller hook. And then I thought about doing a bow, but decided that was a bit too much, so I'm just going to have that hanging. Here I am hot gluing the two ends of the ribbon together, so it has a bit of a neater look while it's hanging. Stay tuned to see how it turns out. For our next project, we're going to be creating a pick that you can put in a tree or you can put in vases. So I'm just using some wire here and I'm using some pliers to cut them to length. I'm going to be cutting 3 different lengths for each of the pick stems. So here I'm just working out, which one I want to be smaller, which one I want to be longer. In hindsight, I think I probably would have made the center stem a little bit longer, so I had a bit more to work with when I'm putting it in the tree, but that's okay. I'll remember that for next time. Next, I am bending and twisting and joining the 3 stems together. This is pretty straightforward. The wire is pretty easy to bend. I'm just being a bit careful and I'm sort of tightening it and squishing them together with the pliers there. Next, I am using some florist tape. This is a brown color, so I thought that it would blend in well with the tree. So I'm just wrapping it around. This was a little bit time consuming, which is why I've sped up the footage there, but I am going up the center stem first, and then I'm going up each of the additional stems, just wrapping it around. It's wonderful and sticky, so there's no issues with it adhering. Now, if I had have been able to have some brown florist wire, I wouldn't need to do this step, but I was just trying to work with what I already had. I'm then arranging my snowflakes, working out how I would like them to sit on the stems and how many I want. I went with an odd number here. Odd numbers tend to look a lot better in decorations. Once I've worked out where I want them to go, I'm using Gorilla Super Glue to adhere them. So I'm putting the glue on the stem and then placing the snowflake on the stem. I've got it probably going up about halfway across the snowflake, and I'm just repeating the steps for each of the different snowflakes. I'm then using a spray adhesive on each of my snowflakes. I'm spraying a little bit on each one, and then I'm going to leave it to get tacky. I'm then coming in with some wonderful glitter. I wanted to add a little bit of bling to these, so I am just using my little shaker top there to distribute the glitter, and not too much. I don't want to go crazy here, but a little bit of glitter is always wonderful in Christmas decorations. And here is our finished gingerbread wreath. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think that it is so beautiful, and it's great to find another way to use those snowflake molds. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Hit that like button if you like it. I think you could definitely turn this into a larger piece with a larger plywood base. The gingerbread pick I think looks super cute in a tree. You could definitely add more snowflakes if you wanted, or not worry about the glitter if it was a bit much for you. I think that it would look great in a vase too. If you're not already, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button, and make sure you check out the other videos in our IOD Christmas playlist. We have lots of festive craft ideas for the season. You can head to our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au, for all of your IOD needs. Today we're going to make some gingerbread trees. We are going to use the Blitz and the Holly Lane mould and some IOD air dry clay. You can find a full product list in the description of this video, and all your IOD and Dixie Belle needs on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Let's get started. Today I'm using these paper mache trees that I found at one of those big box stores, and I am going to be painting a coat of Dixie Belle's pumpkin spice chalk mineral paint on the base of 2 of them. I'm then going to be using IOD's air dry clay in the Blitz mold to cast a bunch of snowflakes. I'm going to do all of the snowflakes except for the larger one. I want to be able to use a bunch of them on the trees, and that large one is just a bit too big. Usually I would use amazing casting resin for this, but I want to cast quite a few, and my resin supplies are running a bit low with all the crafting I've been doing, so we're using clay today. Now, when you're doing the snowflakes, it is really important to use that cornstarch. It's really going to make sure that your castings come out relatively easily. I do find it harder to get good detail using clay in this mold, but it's still very, very cute, and it'll definitely work for our project today. Once I have my snowflakes cast, I'm going to be attaching them with a strong wood glue. Now I'm just going to have a bit of a play as I'm applying them to work out how I want my snowflakes to sit. There's going to be gaps in between, and I just want to get as close a fit as possible so that the gaps aren't too wide. So I've just put my paint there to help stabilize my tree as it wanted to go for a bit of a roll there, and I'm just gluing down each of the snowflakes. Obviously we're dealing with a curved surface here, so I'm being gentle and wrapping and pressing the snowflakes around my surface. I suggest having some wet wipes handy to clean off your hands while you're doing this, as mine got really sticky from all the glue and dealing with the clay. So definitely a good idea to have some of those on standby. So if you're going to try this project, it really is up to you how many snowflakes you add, how you space them out. You could give them a lot more space in between. It's really down to the look that you're after. Remember to be a bit gentle as you're pressing your snowflakes down so that you don't damage any of the details. In certain areas, I did actually cut the snowflake in half to fit down the bottom. Now I'm sure you probably noticed that not all of my snowflakes were perfect. Some of them had the clay that stuck in the mold a little bit, but I wasn't going for a perfect look here. This is just a fun project, so try not to stress over the fact that the snowflakes may not come out perfect. Once I have all the snowflakes glued down, I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours before I start painting. I'm just a bit worried that using the paint, I will damage the details that are already a little bit fragile anyway, so I'll give it that time to set up so that when I paint it, I don't damage them. Next, we're going to start work on the other tree. I'm going to use the Holly Lane mold, and I'm going to cast the smaller elements from the mold, and I'm going to make enough to cover the tree. Now there are going to be gaps here again, but that's okay. We're still going to try and get somewhat of a tight fit with minimal gaps. So again, you can see here that I'm working that clay into the mold, rubbing my thumb against the micro rim, and then flipping the mold over and using gravity to help me get that mold out. Once I have all my holly bits and pieces ready, I'm using that strong wood glue again and applying it generously to the back and then positioning it onto my little tree. Again, I'm gently bending and curving the castings around the tree, and anywhere where I feel like there needs to be a little bit of excess glue, I'm adding that and gently pressing down. I'm not worried if excess glue comes out either side of the castings because this glue dries clear. After you press the mold down, you can see here that I was able to shift it a little bit into a slightly different position, but I wouldn't recommend moving it once it's been sitting on the surface for a minute or so because it does tend to bond pretty quickly, and I found that if I tried to move it, that it actually ripped the mold as I was pulling it away. So definitely pick your position and make sure you're happy with it pretty quickly. I didn't really have much of a plan in terms of layout and how I was going to set the molds, so you can see I'm just experimenting and playing and working out what's going to fit where. And really it is up to you if you're going to do this project. It's up to you how much space you're going to leave in between and what molds you want to put where. Just don't be afraid to have a bit of a play and see which composition feels right for you. Anywhere that my holly leaves overlapped the bottom, I just gently bent and pulled the excess off. I found that as I got closer to the top that I was reaching for the smaller castings from the Holly Lane mould to fill in the spaces, so maybe keep this in mind as you're working on your composition, that you'll need some smaller pieces for the top. Once I was finished with this tree, I also sat it to one side and let it dry for 24 hours before coming in to paint. Next, I'm using Dixie Belle's Pumpkin Spice Limited Edition Fall Colour. This is a chalk paint, so it sticks really well and it's nice and thick. I found myself loading my brush up a little bit more than I usually would, just so that I didn't have to be too rough with applying my paint. I found that if I added a bit of extra and then gently dabbed and stippled the paint and spread it, I just found that that was less harsh on my molds, because these are still going to be fragile, especially as some of the little pieces I found did sort of stick out just a little bit, but overall I was pretty happy with how this turned out. Next, I'm adding the white gingerbread details. I'm using a small artist brush with the colour Fluff, and I am adding it to the snowflakes. I am just running my brush over the details. I found that if I laid my brush at a bit more of a flat angle, that it really only caught the high points and the details that I was trying to hit anyway. So that definitely made the job a little bit easier. So I'll work my way around and add all the details to the different snowflakes. There's a lot of snowflakes and a lot of detail, so I did speed up the footage for you here, guys. Otherwise we would be here for a long time. But definitely get yourself a small artist brush for this job if you're going to give it a go yourself. It definitely makes your life a lot easier. Next, I'm going to sit that to one side and I'm going to focus on the holly tree. Now I'm adding the white to the holly berries, and then I am running my brush along the edges of the leaves and in the crevices and just catching the high points. We are going to be using a little bit more white, but I thought that this really reminded me a lot of icing sugar and the dusting that we do to a lot of our lovely Christmas treats. So that's the look I was going for here, and again I've sped it up. There's a lot of details to do here. I decided to add a little bit of sparkle, so I'm using Boyle spray adhesive and I am spraying my dry trees well with the adhesive. This is going to help my glitter to stick well. I'm then sprinkling on some white shimmery glitter over both trees. And here are the finished gingerbread trees. This project was a lot of fun and it really, honestly, I think looks like real gingerbread. Let me know what you guys think of this project in the comments. Do you have a favorite out of the trees? If you liked today's project, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And if you're not already, I would love it if you could hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our Christmas crafts or furniture makeovers. Today, I am going to be creating a gingerbread style star. I found this paper mache star from one of the big box stores and thought it would make the perfect base for some Christmas decor. To begin, I'm going to paint the entire thing using Dixie Belle's Pumpkin Spice Limited Edition Fall Colour Chalk Mineral Paint. I'm then going to grab my Blitz mould, add some cornstarch, and I'm going to work my Jovi air dry clay into one of the snowflake designs. I'm then going to turn it over and use gravity to help me get it out of the mould. I'm then going to shape and mould the snowflake to fit my surface and glue it on with a strong wood glue. I thought about adding that trim but changed my mind, so I'm going ahead and I'm casting a bunch more of these snowflakes. I'm going to have a play and I'm going to see how many each side will require. If you want to try this project at home, you could definitely use resin, but I thought that might be just a little bit too time consuming for me here because I am going to be making a lot of them. Once I've got a few cast, I'm going to start gluing them down and arranging them how I want them. So I'm also adding them over the edges of the star as well, and as you are doing this, you have to be very gentle not to bend the clay too much because otherwise you get cracking as it's drying. I thought about adding some of the smaller snowflakes from the mould, but thought that it just would start to look a bit too busy. Once I have all of my castings down, I am very gently coming in with the same Dixie Belle Pumpkin Spice Chalk Mineral Paint over the snowflakes. Now, these have not been sitting for too long, so I'm being very gentle as I'm applying my paint because I don't want to ruin any of those details. If you're a gingerbread fan, make sure you check out my IOD Christmas playlist where I have made quite a few gingerbread themed decor items for Christmas. There are a lot of details in these snowflakes and a lot of little nooks and crannies, so I found that dabbing and stippling my paint on and changing the angle at which I was using my brush really helped me to get into all of those details. Once my paint had dried completely, I'm going to come in now with Dixie Belle's Fluff Chalk Mineral Paint on a small little artist brush. Now I am adding my details very, very slowly. I'm trying to catch the higher points of the snowflakes and I'm sort of holding my brush at a bit more of a flat angle and I'm pulling the paint away. So again, it just depends on what look you're going for here. This isn't really dry brushing because we are having quite a bit of paint on our brush. I just found that I was able to just hit the high points having that brush on that angle. I did notice that because I was using the clay as opposed to resin, that my details were not as precise as they would have been in resin. But again, that would have been a lot of snowflakes to cast, and it's a lot easier to bend the clay after you've made it as opposed to the resin. You need to bend your resin pretty quickly after you've cast it, or you need to heat it up with a heat gun. Let me know in the comments if you have used IOD's Blitz mould or even their snowflake mould from years previous, and let me know what projects that you use them on. This is definitely a bit of a time-consuming project, but the end results are definitely worth it. We're going to speed it up for you now. Once my paint was dry, I came in with Boil adhesive spray. I'm going to spray this over the entire piece. This is going to help with our next step when I break out the glitter. I'm using a sort of generic white shimmery sort of a glitter here that I picked up from a craft store, and it has a little shaker top on it, so that's going to make it a bit easier for me to spread the glitter. So I'm just tapping it and shaking it over the top of the star. I have given the adhesive spray about 30 seconds before I did this so that it would become tacky, and then I am going to sort of lift it up and shake off any excess glitter. So I'm using more of a white sort of a glitter here, but you could definitely come in with something more like gold if that's to your liking. I just wanted something a little bit more subtle here. Next, I'm going to add some beautiful Hessian ribbon that I picked up at Costco. So I'm just looping it around. I thought I was going to do a standard bow here, so I've done a couple of loops to work out how much I'd need, and then I am trimming off the excess. I'm then going to create 2 loops roughly the size that I would like them, and then I'm going to twist and tie those loops together. And I'm just going to sort of adjust and have a play with how big each of those loops are. After I held it in position, I decided I wanted a double loop on each side, so I've made another loop and I'm putting the little tail end there through the middle knot and just pulling it to the length that I want, and I'm then repeating it on the other side. It's definitely a good idea to use ribbon that has wire. It definitely makes sort of fluffing and getting those loops to the size that you want a lot easier. I'm then going to use my hot glue gun. I'm going to add a little dob of glue up the top there, and that is going to help to secure my ribbon. I'm then going to cut each of the ends of the ribbon on an angle to tidy them up. I decided to add a little bit of greenery, so I took this off a garland, but I do want to be able to add it back to the garland later on, so I'm just sort of gently bending it into the shape and position that I want. And there is a little looped hanger on the back of the star, so I'm just going to thread the greenery stem through that, and it's just going to sit there. It's not very heavy, so I'm not going to have any issues. So I'm just playing around with the position of the greenery behind the bow. So remember, if you're going to try this at home, you can use a more festive ribbon on this star, or you can add some different greenery. It really is up to you. And here's our finished gingerbread style star. Let me know what you think of today's project in the comments, and please hit that like button if you like it. I think that this star would have so many uses. I think it could go beautifully on a front door or even as a tree topper. Make sure you check out the other videos in the Crazy About Gingerbread playlist. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you could hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our DIYs. Today we're going to make a Christmas gingerbread door hanger. We're going to be using the Noel paint inlay, the Blitz mould, and amazing casting resin. We're also going to be using the barnwood planks stamp. You can find these products on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au, and a full product list in the description of this video. Let's get started. First, I'm going to be making my castings out of the amazing casting resin. I'm going to mix part A with part B for 30 seconds and then pour them into the molds. I'll be able to take them out in about 10 minutes. While the snowflakes are curing, I'm going to get started on my wood round. I'm going to do 2 coats of Dixie Belle's Fluff chalk mineral paint as a base to go underneath our inlay. Today we're using the Noel paint inlay. There are 8 pages of gorgeous Christmas designs to choose from. I've already done quite a few videos on these. Make sure that you check out our IOD Christmas playlist. Today we're going to be actually doing the second use of the gingerbread design, which you will see at the end here. When applying paint inlays, you're going to add it to wet paint. So here I am applying a generous coat of Dixie Belle's Fluff over the top of my 2 dry coats, and I'm going to make sure that I have enough paint that it's not going to dry too quickly. While my paint is still wet, I'm going to take my paint inlay and press it design side down. So the lettering should read correctly for you and the grid side should be showing up. Now I am carefully pressing down, making sure that my inlay has really good contact. Now this is the second use, so it is going to be a bit more faded, and there also will be some remnants of the paint that I used it in before. I used it in a cream paint previously. So now I am misting and generously dampening the paint inlay, and then I'm also going to come in with a damp cloth, and again I'm just pressing down, making sure that I have really good contact with my paint so that all of the lettering and the images show. I'll then leave my paint inlay to dry. While my paint inlay is drying, I am taking out my castings and peeling off any excess resin from the snowflakes. I will be casting quite a few of these snowflakes for today's projects and future videos. Next, I'm painting a coat of Dixie Belle's Pumpkin Spice Chalk Mineral Paint on each of the snowflakes. This is going to be a wonderful base for our gingerbread theme. I'm then going to use a small artist brush and Dixie Belle's Fluff Chalk Mineral Paint to paint the details on the snowflakes. This is going to give it that gingerbread look. I found that if I laid my brush down at a flat angle, that I only hit the high points, and it made painting these a lot easier. Now that my paint inlay is dry, it's ready for me to take it off. I'm going to mist it very well with water and also use a damp cloth as well to take off any excess. This is going to allow the paper to release. After giving the moisture about 30 to 60 seconds to soak in, I'm very carefully going to peel back my inlay. I'm going to be very gentle so that the paper doesn't rip, and if I find any resistance, I will mist the paper again. So remember, this is the second use. I've already used this before, but the design has come out pretty good. It's just a bit more of a grey colour as opposed to a black, and you can see I do have some paint remnants there of my cream colour. I'm now using a fine grit sandpaper to sand away a lot of the extra ridges there to give it a smoother look. After brushing away the sanding dust, I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of clear coat and water to spray my inlay. This is going to allow me now to come in once that's dry with a coat of Dixie Belle's Satin clear coat. This is going to minimize any sort of smearing. When that's dry, I'm coming in with Dixie Belle's Tobacco Road Voodoo Gel Stain. I want to tone this and give it a vintage look. I'm also coming in with the Au Naturel Voodoo Gel Stain. Again, I want this to have a bit of a vintage feel to it. I'm then going to use the Tobacco Road Voodoo Gel stain on the Barn Wood Planks stamp here and very gently press it over the design. Now anywhere that it was a bit thick over the lettering or the image, I'm just rubbing it off or wiping it off with a damp cloth. I want the hint of the wooden boards. Again, this is adding to that vintage sort of a country feel. I'm now working out placement, trying to figure out how I want my little snowflake gingerbread biscuits to sit, and anywhere that some of the Tobacco Road stain is a bit dark, I'm using a wet wipe to wipe it back, and then I'm going to come in with some hot glue and glue those snowflakes down into position. I'm then going to add a screw-in hook to the top of the door hanger, and then I am going to add some buffalo check ribbon to the top. I thought that the colors went beautifully together, so I am putting it around the hook, making sure that each side is even, and then tying a bow. And here is our Christmas gingerbread door hanger. I hope that you guys like this project. I am so happy that I got another use out of that inlay and that the snowflake gingerbread cookies go well with it. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Please hit that like button if you liked today's project. Make sure you check out my other videos. I have some other gingerbread and Christmas inspired projects in the IOD Christmas playlist. If you're not already, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our festive ideas this season or furniture makeovers. You can find these products on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.